one gloomy autumn evening. A sad fog cloud was hovering over the roads. Michael, who had a tired and rainy trip, saw only one sign on the highway: Mystery Highway Hotel, 10 miles. As the intensity of the rain increased, Michael decided to spend the night at this hotel. Its lights shone invitingly inside, but it attracted attention with its gloomy atmosphere. When Michael arrived at his hotel, he quickly opened the door and went inside. The attendant waiting opposite greeted him with a strange smile. The interior of the hotel bore the traces of an old manor house, antique furniture, old paintings, and wooden floors. Everything reflected the history of this place. The other guests at the hotel also seemed strange. The expression in their eyes was sad, as if they had taken refuge here and could not escape. Michael decided to go to his room and rest. But as the night progressed, he heard strange sounds echoing through the hotel corridors. When he sleeplessly went out into the corridor, in the middle of the night, an ancient piano melody was played in his ears. But where the piano room had been, there was only an empty hallway. The next morning, Michael spent a night full of dreams. In his dreams, he saw figures from ancient times approaching him, and they were talking in a strange way. When she woke up from the dream, she realized that the bedroom door was locked and clicks could be heard from inside. In a panic, he thought about escaping through the window, but the window was also locked. The door suddenly opened, and one of the figures he had seen in his dreams during the night entered. It was as if her soul had been directed to him. The figure, slowly approaching, looked into Michael's eyes. His eyes were black, empty, and began to absorb Michael's soul. With the first light of the morning, the hotel staff entered Michael's room, but they did not find him there in the room. The bed was neatly made, and the window was open. Michael disappeared after that day and left no trace. The mysterious highway hotel became the subject of horror stories and was referred to as a mysterious place hidden by the people of the town. Inside the hotel, stories of strange figures and lost souls were still circulating. No one dared to approach a hotel again, and the place was abandoned only to the imaginary fears of those who did not have the courage. It was built on a plain with red soil, on the outskirts of a small town. This declivity, right next to the town, was known as the Red Cemetery among the locals. The name originated from the red-colored soil on the plain, but this place was also identified with fear and horror. The people of the town used to tell stories about strange things happening at the Red Cemetery towards midnight. The sky would turn red, and according to local legends, at this time the people of the cemetery would wake up, come out of the ground, and terrorize the town. But whether this was just a myth or a fact, no one knew for sure. Daniel, one of the young men of the town, was a brave soul who did not believe in these legends. One night, he decided to go to the Red Cemetery with his friends. As the moon rose in the red-colored sky, they stepped into the town cemetery. The cemetery seemed quiet and calm. However, as he proceeded, he heard strange sounds coming from under the ground. Suddenly, the tombstones began to move and got out of place. The surface of the earth was torn apart, and red-robed figures appeared in the square. Daniel and his friends tried to retreat in terror, but the strange beings quickly caught up with them. The red-robed being's eyes were shining with a terrible light, and Daniel's friends began to disappear one by one. Daniel managed to escape from the hands of these strange creatures, but when he returned to the town, he could not find traces of his friends. The townspeople did not believe Daniel's story and declared him insane. However, he could never forget the nightmares he experienced that night. The images of the terrible beings in the red cemetery and the red sky haunted him forever. Daniel spent the rest of his life trying to solve the mysterious secrets of the red cemetery, but he could never stop pursuing the truth. The red cemetery and its strange inhabitants were still waiting as a dark shadow over the town. Eleanor, who lives in a city where the old mansion she inherited has been closed for years, did not know about a tragedy that happened many years ago in a remote and eerie area of her mansion, far from the coast. According to the allegations, this place was cursed and its families were pursuing it with a vengeance. Eleanor decided to help with the maintenance work on her mansion. One day, when he entered the old, dusty apartment of the manor, he found an antique mirror. The mirror looked as if it had been forgotten for years. When Eleanor got in front of the mirror, the expression on her face suddenly changed. In the mirror, the reflected image was not his. She looked like him, but her eyes were filled with a terrible darkness. Eleanor, nodding slowly at the mirror, reached a hand through the mirror and jumped towards Tuesday. Suddenly, Eleanor was trapped in the mirror. Eleanor was in an eternal darkness. There was nothing around him, just a terrible silence and darkness. However, a sound echoed through the mirror. This sound was deepening the darkness inside Eleanor even deeper. For hours, which felt like an endless time, Eleanor felt as if she were lost in a mirror. He felt like a shadow and slowly began to go crazy. Suddenly, however, another hand protruding from the mirror pulled him back into the real world. Eleanor was standing in front of the mirror, panting and trembling. While trying to figure out what happened, he heard a sound echoing through the mirror. The voice was Eleanor's own inner voice, but it was telling her that she had come to take revenge. Eleanor quickly closed the mirror and did not tell anyone about this strange incident inside the mansion. But every night, when he was sleeping in his bed, he faced that eternal darkness and terrible silence again. The mirror was the bearer of an eternal curse, and it was no longer possible to get rid of it. Eleanor knew that there was no longer a way of escape for her and her family, and the reflections of the eternal mirror would continue to live with her. A mysterious door has been waiting in the basement of an old mansion, forgotten for years, although no one knew how this door got there or where it opened to. The people of the town could feel the strange energies radiating from this door. The basement of the mansion was dark and cold, and traces of the dark secrets that had once been processed here could still be felt. One night, Eliza, a young and brave woman, discovered this mysterious door. As he went down to the basement, he could hear footsteps accompanied by the click of his cane. When he got to the front door, he started to break out in cold sweats. There were strange symbols on the door and strange patterns that looked like they came out of a dream. Eliza curiously unlocked the door and stepped inside. Suddenly, he found himself in the same part of town, but in a different time zone. He realized that he was among a group of people being chased by witch hunters. At first he could not understand what had happened, but he understood that time was playing a game and sending him to the past. Eliza struggled to survive, but the people of the town saw her as a witch and tried to escape. But each time, when he returned to the gate of time, he faced a different date and a different danger. The horrors of the past surrounded him, because the gate of time was drawing in not only the past, but also people's fears and nightmares. Eliza had to find a way to close the door of time, but every attempt she made led to a more complicated time travel. Trapped in time, the boundary between reality and dream was decaying, and eventually Eliza disappeared into a fearful reverie. In the basement of the mansion, while the gate of time was quietly closing, the people of the town could only speculate about Eliza's mysterious disappearance. No one dared to open the door of time again, and the secrets that lay behind that door would remain a mystery forever. When he opened his eyes, Matt found himself in a strange and dark place. At first he tried to look around, but a black wall stretched out on either side of him. The floor was like an old and rusty metal. His steps resounded at every click. Suddenly, he realized that an endless corridor stretched out in front of him. The beginning and the end of the corridor seemed to be as far away as the eye could see. Too far away to tremble, but so close. While Matt was trying to figure out where he was, he saw a door appear at the end of the corridor. He began to walk curiously towards the door. As he approached the door, in an instant the door opened and he entered, but inside, it was a place that scared him even more. He was in a dark forest. The branches of the trees were bent over him, and the sky was gray. Matt was paying attention to strange noises, breaking the silence around him. It sounded like the rustling of the wind at first, but as we got closer, the sounds became more distinct. The sounds were the footsteps of a group of people approaching. Matt tried to see them, but they were hiding in the shade of the trees. Matt's eyes were fixed on a man he thought was the leader of the group. The man's face froze Matt's heart. This man's eyes, which carried a terrible expression, were empty, and his lips were curled with a cold smile. The man approached, and looked towards Matt. Then he moved his lips, but Matt could not understand the words he heard. The man's eyes got emptier and emptier, and suddenly Matt felt like he was being pulled into his eyes. Matt was torn from his own body and began to act completely out of control. He did not remember the next moment. He was just continuing a dark and hopeless journey through an endless corridor. Fear had enveloped him, and he was trapped under the curse of these endless corridors. Matt's disappearance remained a mystery among the people of the town. No one believed those who told this strange and frightening story. And while the curse of the endless corridors still remains a mystery, many brave souls set out to track down the disappeared, but they, too, disappeared into the depths of the endless corridors. It was still unknown why the endless corridors existed and what kind of curse they carried, and perhaps it would never be found out.